Hey, what's up? This is Wolf. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch these videos. If you don't have the time to watch these videos because they take a little bit of time, save to watch later, please, and watch them later when you have the time. And if you have the time to watch them now, please listen and listen carefully, because what I share is stuff that's meant to help you, and it can only help you if you're willing to listen. And those people who hit me up in the comment sections, I really appreciate your feedback. It's exactly why I'm doing these videos, and I'm really grateful for comments like these. Comments like these are just amazing, because it just confirms to me that the stuff that I'm sharing right now is very important. Because as much as I might not be getting my usual big number of views on these videos at the moment, it's doing the impact. It's actually reaching and helping people, which is what I want to do with what I present. It's very intentional, very purposeful, serving my purpose of helping people achieve happiness and productivity in their lives. With that said, today's video is another nice saucy one. It's another how I quit. I think I'll call it how and why I quit. Today's one is how and why I quit social media. This was actually by request. I was always planning to make this video at some point. I was going to do it at a later stage after I've actually quit for a long period of time, because effectively I've been a few months completely off. I cut down and then now I'm completely off bad social media, which I will discuss later. And it's been really great and really freeing. Let's get straight into it. First thing I have to do is that I have to clarify what is bad and good social media. We can all agree that social media started from a good place. It was a space that you could connect and share with family and friends. Also, just share your experiences and memories with those same family and friends. It was a safe space where you could connect with other like-minded people and share ideas and communicate and collaborate. And I think that, in essence, is what good social media should do. So what is bad social media? Bad social media is social media that distracts me, that puts me in a negative space, or changes my mood in a way that it makes me angry or sad or even jealous. And yes, there's a time and space for receiving information that makes you angry or sad, but I choose not to receive that from social media, because social media, in terms of its format and the way it's designed, short form, and the fact that it actually celebrates and promotes salacious content and exaggerations and even false narratives, it's not a good space to try and get stuff that can put you in a space where you feel those kinds of emotions, because it can direct you in the wrong direction and not in a way that's positive or can move us forward. So I'd rather receive that information from elsewhere, not social media. So with that said, pretty much all the major social media platforms did that or do that. They distracted me, they changed my mood, they just made me angry and sad sometimes. And yes, they make me like happy or smile, but that was few and far between compared to the negative stuff. Yes, it made me feel good, but also made me feel good in bad things. We'll talk about that a little later, but it just, in the balance of things, all the major social media platforms were just not good. So I quit. I quit all of them. When I say I quit, I mean I deleted them off my phone. I completely do not use them in the way that they're supposed to be used. I still have my accounts, but I only post via my computer. And even then I have to like do the whole login process and so forth. So it's not this easy for me to get on, but I do that whole process. So it's intentional when I go on to post and share information that I think matters for those people still on the platform. Because like I said, social media had a good purpose and I think I can still use it in that way, but in the way of me having it on my phone and it being easily accessible, it did all the other negatives. So in that way, I completely quit social media. So I'd rather not be on it scrolling, hoping that the algorithm will give me something that's good or positive and not take me down the rabbit hole of angry or sad or any other emotion. With that said, let me go into the basics of how I quit. Number one, I educated myself. In educating myself, I did all the research that I could on social media. This is something I was doing already early days on trying to figure out social media in my profession. It's something that I use as part of my profession. In all the studies that I came across when it comes to social media, many studies point to the fact that social media is actually toxic and really bad for mental health. This is a consistent narrative amongst scientific studies, and I think has reached the level of scientific consensus, and society itself, I think, acknowledges this fact. And if you are not a person convinced, do the research for yourself. I'm not going to go deep into that aspect. So with that said, I still had this thing to justify that I need to be on social media for the sake of my profession. As a musician, I think it's safe to say that it's almost essential to the success of your career to be active and have a good, strong social media. This is what being a musician or popular musician in today's format is. If you have a really thriving social media, then you have a thriving music career. It's hence also why so many people are deciding out of nowhere to be musicians, because they actually found that having a thriving social media almost immediately equates to having a thriving music career. So it's like a no-brainer for people to choose that. And I think it's also partly in fact that our reality has now shifted, whereas before you had to be popping in the real world to be popping in the social world or the virtual world. It's now the opposite. It's now flipped, and it's virtual world. If you're popping there, then you can pop in the real world. There's actually studies that actually talk about this and can point out how our reality has been augmented and changed, and that we don't see reality the same because of social media. We literally are programmed by computers to think and act the way we do. And I don't want to get in too deep on that stuff. There's other videos in which I touch on this subject. So if you want to really go in depth and figure out my analysis, or just find another study out there, go for it, or click on those videos and then come back here. But in short, I understood that cutting down or not caring about social media as much would affect my career. See, in the peak of my career, I understood how the system works. I understood this concept of the impact of social media and how we can actually perpetuate and support your career. And I utilize this to the full, like most musicians or influencers out there do. But it's become so mechanized that I saw no life in it. And I think that is partly the reason why I had my moment of clarity and decided to walk away from the industry. It was because I was not enjoying it. There was no happiness. There was just these numbers being reached and boxes being ticked, but no feeling in it. And hence why it just didn't do it for me. And I had to figure out what does do it for me. If you didn't know, all these social media platforms pretty much are controlled by algorithms. I talk about that way more in the video I posted about how I fell off and I'm loving it. Essentially, those algorithms can be hacked. If you didn't know that they are groups, apps, automations that you can use to increase your likes, your comments, everything. You can hack the system if you really want to hack it. So if you want to get hundreds of likes or thousands of views on your videos, there's a hack out there that you can use to get it done. I'm not going to talk about them because I know some of you are going to use them and it'll put you down a rabbit hole that you don't want to be in. And trust me, there's lots of people out there using these hacks. I mean, power to them. I'm not here to judge, because I used some of those hacks as well, and it really did work. But like I said, to a certain extent, it wasn't real, because it never felt real to me. And it worked in the real world, because in the real world, people care about those numbers. They care about social impact. So in the real world, they start appreciating and loving you more unconsciously because of the numbers. I know this because I am also one of those people who subconsciously, without even realizing it, will look at the counter and attribute value to what I'm receiving and attribute value to what I'm seeing. I had to start making a conscious effort not to do that, to start benefiting from stuff that really matters or stuff that's really going to help me. Because a lot of the stuff that's actually good for you, that's actually going to put you in a good position, in a positive space, or make you happy, really doesn't get the views and the likes or the engagement it's supposed to, because it's not as easily digestible. I think that's the best way to describe it. Hence why, in my effort to fight for my happiness and to focus on my happiness, I had to deprogram myself from that. So I understand how people are still programmed in that. In that journey of trying to navigate and balance this whole thing of trying not to care about these numbers and trying not to use social media in a way that's going to be negative on me or negative on people who follow me and people who pay attention to me, I just came to realization that I actually just don't need it. And after a lot of scrutiny, I realized I don't want it, because as much as I was starting to get stuff that was good or positive, because I started using it right or focusing on trying to use it right, I realized that I was getting the stuff on other platforms more than the platforms I was on the most. Yet I will still go back to the same platforms. And I'm not going to be around the bush. I can be clear. Like, for example, I'd be on Instagram a lot or Twitter a lot. Those were the two biggest platforms that I would use. Those platforms I would be on a lot. Yet most of the life-changing content or stuff that really got to me or made me the way I am now and in a more positive space and more happy, I was actually getting from YouTube, which made me want to question, what is it? Because YouTube is essentially still a social media. And I realized that short form content is the problem. With YouTube, yes, you get a lot of nonsense on YouTube. Trust, there's plenty of stuff that's frivolous and not as good as YouTube. But on YouTube, versus doing this constant scroll, that computer program, mechanized scroll, because everybody is like a machine just scrolling. And when you do that, you're just looking for a dopamine hit. It's you don't even realize what you're doing. You're looking for a dopamine hit. So even if there's a quick video that teaches you a quick lesson, but most lessons that matter can never be quick. I love learning. I don't want to be prideful, but it's something that I'm grateful that I've always had in me, in that I love to learn and absorb information. And when you learn, you need as much information as possible, and YouTube gives you that, because it gives you the long format. It gives you the ability to listen, engage more. And then when you learn from that one person, I love listening to scientists, doctors, TED Talks, specialists who I should be listening to. And when I listen to one, another one is recommended, and I start getting more information, and I'm able to collaborate and get the information from multiple sources, and I can start putting together views or plan of action that actually works for me from all the knowledge gained. Because yes, some stuff might be incorrect, but I'm able to, as I watch YouTube on my laptop, able to open another browser and Google the information myself and start checking out for legitimate sources and studies confirming if someone is telling the truth or not. They also state their credentials. I can literally Google the person's name and I can know if they are legitimately an accomplished doctor or recognized scientist or whatever they claim to be on YouTube. So I can do that as well, which is something that also helps me with my YouTube journey, because some people use YouTube wrong if it's not progressing you. But Instagram supports and perpetuates idolacism. I think that's the word. Idolacism. I'll check it out. Put the definition here. It promotes that in a way, as human nature designed us to always gauge ourselves based on our environment. We are now gauging ourselves against the best in the world, the richest in the world. It's not a fair way of gauging yourself, and you always will subconsciously do that in a way that it also affects your self-esteem and your belief in yourself, because you think of yourself less against this person who you think you know. Whereas a platform like Pinterest allows you to get inspiration, but you have no idea who this person is. It doesn't focus so much on the person or their followers or it just shows you exactly what you're looking for. If I'm looking for dessert recipes, I don't see the person's profile prominent on this person's got such an amazing kitchen, it's got that. No, I just see the recipe and it focuses on giving me that recipe. So then Pinterest is the best solution for you if you're looking for inspiration versus Instagram. And it doesn't pressure me to now have to compete with that person and say, I need to post my cookie recipe. You got a fudge recipe that's doing really well and got so many likes. I'm going to post my cookie recipe and have a lot of likes. And when it doesn't get the same amount of likes or views or comments, and you immediately judge yourself and say, oh no, I'm not as good as that guy. Maybe I shouldn't be so passionate about this, because you're doing it for the wrong reasons. And that is the core of why I quit those platforms, because they were replacements that were actually as good, if not better, in doing the good stuff without the negatives. Then lastly, how can you quit, and how did I practically do it? Delete it off your phone. I know it's not that easy, but do as I did. Just delete it off your phone and make it hard for you to access your social media. Then number 2, you need to replace it with something that's good. So like I said, if you liked Instagram, get Pinterest and be clear that you're on Pinterest for positive things. So set up your Pinterest to search and look for positive things that feed your interest, like that make you happy. The next step after that would be journal. Journaling helped me a lot in the process of giving up social media. So actually creating a to-do list, and when I pick up my phone, I rather journal and write how I feel and what's going on in my life and what's draining me and what makes me happy. And then when I read back on the journals, I'm able to start figuring out what actually I need to keep and what I need to get rid of. It's also part of how I knew I had to get rid of social media, because it was draining me quite a bit. And whereas other things were making me more happy, so I started doing them more. So journal, because it takes that reaction of you need to use your phone and looking at your phone and makes you use it in another way that's actually more positive. The other thing you can do is download apps that get you active. So I've got this app called Duolingo, and I'm learning like 4 different languages, and I'm getting pretty proficient in reading and writing in those languages. And it's amazing, because whenever I get that urge to want to be on social media, I actually rather use the app, and that app engages me in a way that I learn something and I'm learning a skill. I would have the urge to still use my phone. So luckily now I'm on the app learning a language. That reflex is being taken care of in a way that's positive. But you can do something else. So find something that's positive that you can use to replace it. Just focus on being happy, because all of this is all about being happy. And If you have a different way that's worked for you to quit social media, please share in the comment section. I've been doing this for many months and actually curing myself of that addiction to dopamine, because social media relies on making you addicted and obsessed with getting a dopamine fix. So detoxing yourself from that dopamine fix makes it easier. So once you go through a month or 2 months of not being on social media, you don't feel it. So just fight through that first month and the second month, and you end up not feeling it. Like I don't feel it right now. I don't have that urge. And it actually helps me quit other things, which I'll talk about in another video. Porn. It helped me quit porn. I know my partner's gonna hate me sharing that, but it's like something that I felt and I knew I had to quit. I'll discuss in that other video why, but I wasn't watching a lot, but it was something that I wanted to quit completely out of my life, and I have now and don't feel the urge. So with that said, I'm Aewon Wolf signing out. I love you, appreciate you. Do the like, subscribe, share, whatever, as long as this video helped you. But please comment. Oh wait, peace out. A-Town.